We all know the story. A teenage babysitter, a quiet house, sleeping kids. Then the phone rings. A whisper on the other end. Have you checked the children? The babysitter just brushes it off as a prank, but the calls don't stop. Again and again, the same eerie voice asks, have you checked the children? So freaked out, she calls the police, and they promise to trace the next call. And when the phone rings again, the whisper is back. But this time, the cops call her. Get out, the calls are coming from inside the house. Ugh. This terrifying urban legend has been nightmare fuel for decades. Because who among us hasn't been babysitting, looked at the windows, and been like, please God, please don't let me see a face. Babysitting is pretty terrifying. And all that fear for decades, it's all inspired by one real life case. So what actually happened? Let's recap. The true story dates back to 1950 in Columbia, Missouri, March 18. It's a Saturday night. 13-year-old Janett Christman has a choice. Go to a party with her friends or take a babysitting job. She chooses work because Janett is a great girl. She has her eye on a burgundy suit for Easter and she just needs one last payment. You remember layaway? One last payment? It's hers. Well, that night, she gets to the Romack house around 7:30. The couple, Ed and Ann Romack, are going to a party. It's like they're going to this social club. So it's not really at somebody's house, but there's going to be a lot of other couples there. And it's like one of those things you did in the 50s. So their 3-year-old son, Gregory, is already asleep. He's tucked in with a radio on in the background. And you know that this is the dream. When you show up and the kid is already asleep and basically all you have to do is sit there and do your homework and, relax, and you get paid for it. It's amazing. So of course, Janett's like, thank God that suit is mine. I don't really have to do anything. Before leaving, though, Ed Romack does something chilling in hindsight. He reminds her that there's a shotgun in the closet. So let me explain. The house is pretty isolated. It's on the outskirts of town. So he has a gun just in case. And he's shown her how to load it. It's not loaded, but the ammunition is there. So she just has to load it really quick. And he's shown her how to do it and how to fire that just in case anything is going to happen, which of course you never think just in case is ever going to happen till it does. So the night is cold and stormy. I know that sounds like the start of a campfire story, but it actually is. And there's a point to why I'm including that, because the police aren't expecting a lot of action because not even criminals are going to go out on a night like this, that kind of thought process. But somewhere between 10:30 and 11 p.m., a call comes into the station. It's a frantic girl. She's screaming, she's gasping, she's begging for help. Come quick, she screams. But come where? Who is this? Before she can even say her name, the call cuts off. The officer has no way to trace the number. No one knows it yet, but Janett Christman is already dead. When the Romacks come home just after 1:30 a.m., they walk into a nightmare. Janett's body is in the living room near the piano. The intruder beat her, punctured her skin multiple times on her head with a small instrument, violated her, and then strangled her with the electrical cord cut from the iron in the laundry room. The shotgun is untouched, never even made it to it. The telephone is off the hook. Little Gregory, though, the 3-year-old, he's fine. He slept through the entire attack thanks to the radio that his mom left on for him. Didn't even hear it. Whoever did this came for Janett. She fought back hard. Blood smears are everywhere. The living room, the kitchen, the hallway, both the front and back door are unlocked. Now, outside, officers find a wooden sawhorse positioned under a side window. That window is the only one in the house without a storm sash. It's been shattered by a garden hoe that's also laying on the ground next to the sawhorse. Now, some officers think that this is how the killer got in, but others aren't so sure. Because remember, the front door is unlocked and the porch light is on, just like Ed told Janett to do if someone knocked. Then there's the electrical cord wrapped around her neck. The iron it came from was stored away in the laundry room, back in the house. That means whoever did this knew exactly where to find it. So can we really believe that this was a random intruder, or was it someone the Romacks knew? So one thing is clear, getting answers is not going to be easy. You know how it goes. From the start, police are at odds with each other. See, the Romack house is just outside city limits by like a few hundred yards. So like just outside. And multiple agencies get involved. You know, the feds are in on this, both like the county and the city. Everybody's trying to find this brutal killer. But instead of working together, they keep crucial information from each other. So eventually police zero in on one man, Robert Mueller. Now, Robert, he's a 27-year-old friend of Ed Romack's. They went to high school together, and these days they're both members of the same lodge. So Robert joined the Air Force after college and fought in World War II. He's, I don't want to say local hero, but he's something of a, that's our boy, Robert, fighting in the war, Busta, you know, the 1950s talk. So by then, he was back in town with his wife and daughter working in his father's restaurant. He's still in the Air Force, but he's like not on active duty right now because the war is over. So people remember him for always dressing sharp and for one little detail, a mechanical pencil he always carried in his front pocket, the same size as the puncture wounds found on Janett. So where was he the night she was murdered? Now that depends on who you ask. His father said Robert was with him all night until at least 11:45 p.m. The Romacks said he told them he was out driving alone that night. Driving alone, looking at the stars. Sound like any accused killer we know today? Robert himself told police at one point that a doctor had come over to tend to his sick daughter, so he was at home with her. The doctor denied that that ever happened. Now, Robert's wife was working that night, so she couldn't confirm or deny anything. One thing is clear, his alibi didn't add up. And it gets even more disturbing, because he wasn't just a family friend. He knew Janett personally. She'd babysat for his daughter before. And, according to Ed, Robert had made creepy comments about her well-developed figure. He allegedly liked the idea of a young virgin. I know, but that's a quote. So Anne Romack felt uneasy around him too. Now, 2 days before Janett's murder, he was at the Romack house supposedly helping Anne hem a dress because he was something of a tailor. But the dress never got fixed because according to her, he ran his hands across her chest and said, "That's a good-looking dress." So Anne stepped away, uncomfortable, disgusted, as one would be. I mean, Robert just grabbed at her, and now, like nothing happened, he pulls out his mechanical pencil, and he's like, click, 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 click. And then he smirks and says, "I haven't got my keys here to play with." Well, that does it. She's officially freaked out. So she's trying to defuse the moment. Anne says, "I'm going to make some coffee," like to put that space between them. But he shuts that down and says, "I don't have time to wait." So Anne's like, "All right, you better be on your way then. Bye." And with that, he leaves. She's like, "Well, that was creepy, but that's just my husband's creepy friend." But then 48 hours later, the morning Janett is murdered, Robert Mueller's wife picks up the phone and calls Janett, asking if she can babysit their 3-year-old daughter that night. But Janett already has plans. She's watching Gregory Romack. So is that just a coincidence? Or did Robert tell his wife to call Janett for a babysitter knowing that she's probably going to be watching the Romacks? Now, real quick here, I feel like I need to say this because in almost every source, like we're talking Wikipedia, a couple of articles, it says that Robert was at the same party, at that same social club with the Romacks that night. But that's interesting because as we were going through newspaper archives, articles about this, not one article mentioned that he was at that party with them that night. Instead, it says like I mentioned, that he told them he was out driving around. So take that as you will. So Anne Romack once said that Robert was a fan of true crime. And he allegedly told her, if I were ever going to commit a crime, I'd plan it so well, I'd get off scot-free. Is that what happened here? The morning after Janett's murder, Robert called Ed Romack, asking him if he needed help cleaning up the mess. which, of course, makes Ed freeze and say, how'd you know? Because a murder had just happened in his house. He hadn't gotten around to telling anybody about it. But Robert claimed that his mother heard it on the news, on the radio that morning. But when police checked with the local station, the murder hadn't been reported yet. So how did he know? Well, police think he staged it using a garden hoe that was always kept inside the house in a utility room. But all of a sudden it's outside. It's a intruder. It's obvious. The window is broken. They're not going to look any farther than that, right? Well, get this. This wasn't even the first time something this brutal had happened. Between 1946 and 1950, Columbia, Missouri had been plagued by a rash of prowlers, peeping toms, sexual assaults, even a brutal murder, just a mile from the Romack house. That poor girl was Mary Lou Jenkins. She was just 19 when she was raped and strangled in her own home in February 1946. The killer used an electrical cord, just like the one found around Janett's neck. Now, authorities eventually arrested and convicted a black guy for it, a local garbage man named Floyd Cochran. He was first arrested after the murder of his wife, which he confessed to right away. But here's the problem. Floyd only confessed to Mary Lou's murder after an intense interrogation, and then he recanted his confession just days before he was scheduled to be executed. So with Janett's near copycat murder, people in Columbia are starting to be like, wait, what? Did you get the right man? Has the real killer been walking around free this whole time? But of course, police are quick to be like, no. We got the right man. Well, at one point, a deputy claimed that Robert made a chilling statement about the murder of Janett. He said, I might have done it and forgotten it. I do things and forget it. That alone should have been enough for everybody to be like, hold on, let's take a closer look at this person. But here's why. Here's why it didn't happen. A grand jury was convened to decide whether to indict Robert, but despite all the circumstantial evidence, they chose not to charge him. Instead, they turned their focus on something else, the warring law enforcement agencies that completely botched the investigation. So, long story short, because there's quite a bit of legal drama surrounding the fact that he didn't get charged, but to recap that part, basically, the police took him to somebody's farmhouse in the dead of night and kept him there, questioning him for hours and hours and hours and hours. And Ed Romack was there, and like a lot of people were there that shouldn't have been there. But they maintained that he didn't ask to go home, but they didn't even have a warrant. They kind of just grabbed him. And then later, they didn't even tell the prosecuting attorney. And later when the prosecutor asked, why did you do that? He goes, well, we didn't want to put out a warrant and, slander his good name with even a warrant being out. So yada, yada, yada. The man never even got charged because they broke every regulation basically there was to do. Anyway, Robert later accused them of violating his civil rights and slandering his good name, but in the end, he lost that lawsuit. By 1951, he returned to active duty in the Air Force. By this point, he'd been promoted to a captain, and soon he and his family were transferred to Tucson, Arizona, and they never moved back. For the rest of his life, he denied everything. He denied the murder. He even denied the whole dress thing with Anne. He denied every single thing you've heard here today. He denied. He even claimed that he hardly ever visited the Romack house, despite both Anne and Ed saying he stopped by all the time. So Robert died in 2006 at 83 years old. He was never charged. He was never held accountable for Janett's murder or anything else. Despite everything, investigators always believed he was the guy, but he was never charged and no one was ever convicted. To this day, the case remains officially unsolved. So, what do you think? Is the real killer still a mystery? Are you ever going to babysit again? I'm not. Let me know in the comments. If you like getting all the crime in half the time, please give this a like and remember to subscribe so you never miss a story. I'm Amy. Chris and I are here 3 times a week with new recaps. Until next time, take care.